Welcome to my handcrafted garden. This is the third in the series on container gardens, and today I'm going to talk about how to design a container garden. There are some basic design elements that apply to every decorative area of our life, and they apply to plants as well. So today I want to focus on color, shape, and texture. Stay with me till the end because I have a tool that I use every time I make a container garden. So I have 3 spider plants, and I thought it might be interesting to have one pot with all 3 plants in it. But as I look at this in terms of design, let me show you what I discover. In terms of color, we've got green, we've got yellow, we've got white, and those are great complementary colors together. But in terms of shape, we have 3 long, narrow, pointy leaves, and they all drape in the same direction, and it kind of gets a little boring to look at it. And so I'm going to have to change my mind a little bit. My next thought is to add a different texture. So this is a fern, and when we look at the texture and the shape now, the shape of the leaf is very different, and the texture of the leaf is very different on the fern than it is on the spider plants. So we still have green, we still have yellow, we still have white, only we have a little bit better interest in terms of adding some texture. But look what happens when I do this. This is purple that contrasts very nicely with the green and the white. And now we have 3 shapes. We have a broad leaf, we have a smaller leaf, we have this long, shiny leaf. So the color is a good mix, and the texture is a good mix, and the shape is very complementary. This is the kind of combination that would make your friends and neighbors go, wow, that really pops. How did you do that? I want to make one like that. So here's another example of color, texture, and shape as you design a container garden. This is a fern with nice frilly fronds on it. It fills out very nicely, and when I put this next to it, suddenly we have a different shade of green. We've got a little bit of pink in the veins of the leaf. This is an arrowhead plant, and it has a very different shape and a very different texture than the fern, so it complements one another very nicely. And then when I bring in my third element, suddenly I have a burgundy that brings out the color in the leaf, and it's a different shape and it's a different texture, and all 3 of these things go together so pleasantly. It just makes your eye go, oh, I really like that. And there's something to think about at this particular point, because we have 3 different plants here. We're going to put them in the same container, and my thought is, do all of these plants need the same thing? So a fern is a shade-loving plant that likes to be moist. A coral bell is a shade-loving plant that likes to be moist. And an arrowhead is a plant that really doesn't care. It can tolerate a whole lot of shade, and it can tolerate a lot of moisture or a lot of dryness. So it's very flexible. It's a great combination. The plants are going to be happy in the pot. They're going to grow well together. They're going to please the eye, and as long as I locate my pot in the shade close to a hose so that I can keep it moist, these plants are going to be very happy in a container garden. So it's easy to see that designing a beautiful container garden takes some diversity in your plants. It takes some thought ahead of time while you're at the plant store about color and texture and shape and the needs of your plant. And one thing that I've found helpful in that regard is I have two plants that are my go-to plants for almost every container garden because they are so diverse in their color. So this is the genus of Tradescantia. You might know it as Wandering Jew. There are many varieties of Wandering Jew. Most of them are perennial. Some of them are very tender and won't survive the winter. Some of them will. But look at the purples and the greens and the whites. And they change color based on how much sun they're getting. They get more purple and colorful in the sun and more green in the shade. They're very flexible in terms of their plant needs, so they can work in a lot of different locations as long as it's not full sun. They will burn in the sun all day. So the best thing about Tradescantia is that it propagates very easily. And that means if you've got one good-sized plant, within a couple of weeks you're going to have 6 or 8 plants to use in your container gardens. And you'll notice it grows with a seam in the stem where the leaves come out. And that seam is an area that contains a node that will allow the plant to grow a root. And so what you want to do is peel off the bottom couple of leaves and cut it right below the seam. And you want to have a couple of nice leaves at the top to grow. And you stick it in the soil. And once you have it trimmed, you simply stick it in the dirt. And you can take the top part of that and do exactly the same thing. Cut it just below the stem, the seam. Peel off a couple of leaves. If it has a branch coming off, you can leave it. Stick it in the dirt. Keep it moist for a couple of weeks, and it will start growing roots, and you'll have a brand new plant. Now, what you need to be aware of is that sometimes while it's growing roots, it will get wilty because it doesn't have any moisture taken in. So if you notice it getting very wilty, go ahead and cut off part of the leaf. It's not going to hurt it at all if you see it wilting. This just means it has less plant to take care of, and that's all right while it's growing roots. But suddenly I have another plant I can use in another container garden. The other plant that is my go-to plant is the coleus. And it's important to be aware some coleus are specifically designed for shade and others are specifically designed for the sun. So you can choose one of those depending on the location of your container garden. These coleus are all designed for the sun. And in terms of shape, they're all very similar. But there's so much other diversity here that you really don't notice the monotony of the shape because you see some solid colors. You see some lines of different color. You see some mingled sort of abstract splotches of color. And you see a deep green and a lime green and a purple and a pink and a burgundy. And it all just flows together so well in terms of color. So you get a lot of bang for your buck when you have coleus and Tradescantia that you're working into your container garden to provide interest in the areas of color, shape, and texture. The other thing that's very different about them is that this is an annual. It will be beautiful for the spring, the summer, and the fall, but in the winter it will die and it will not come back. So this is one of my favorites. So I promised you a tool that I use every time I design a container garden, and it is a color wheel. A color wheel is available online. You can look for images of the color wheel and they'll pull up for you right away. So I use the color wheel when I'm selecting plants that will go together. And on the color wheel you can see from elementary school, if you remember, yellow, orange, red, purple, blue, and green. If you choose colors on the same side of the wheel, they complement one another, sort of like the spider plant with the green and the yellow in the limbs, and how that complemented because they are on the same side of the wheel. But you'll also notice that if it's on the opposite side of the wheel, it pops right off the page at you because those colors blend together and contrast with one another that make your eye just draw right to it. So you can see in this coleus, God designed it that way. He taught us about how to use color, how to use complementary colors of green and yellow with a contrasting color of red right in the middle of it. And we get that right off the color wheel. So if you take this with you to the plant store, you'll be able to select plants that have a very pleasing appeal.